There's a tree that was already ancient when Rome fell, still standing when the Mayans collapsed, when the Mongol Empire rose and burned out, when the Ottoman Empire crumbled. Empires rise, empires fall, dynasties come and go. But this tree? It just keeps growing. Some of these trees are over 3,000 years old, older than written history in most places, older than the major world religions, older than the concept of nations. And here's what's remarkable. They're not just surviving. They're still producing food. The same fruit their roots pushed up 3,000 years ago, they're pushing up today. For a tree to outlive entire civilizations while continuously feeding people, that's not just longevity. That's a fundamentally different relationship between food and time. So what is this tree? And what does it teach us about how we think about agriculture, permanence, and what it means to plant something that will outlive you by millennia? Stay with me. It's the olive tree. And if you just thought, wait, olives? Yes, exactly. Olives. Not some exotic rainforest giant. Not a rare botanical specimen in a remote location. The humble olive tree. The one you know from Mediterranean food, from ancient texts, from religious symbolism. The same tree. But here's what most people don't realize. Olive trees are effectively immortal. When an olive tree gets damaged, chopped down, burned, struck by lightning, the root system doesn't die. It sends up new shoots, new trunks, and those trunks grow, thicken, and continue producing. The tree you see above ground might be only 500 years old, but the root system beneath? It could be 3,000 years old. Same organism, same tree, just regenerating. Scientists call this vegetative regeneration. The tree essentially clones itself from its own roots, which means that olive tree in Crete, or in Palestine, or in southern Spain, it's the same living organism that fed people when those places had completely different names, different languages. Let me put this in perspective. 3,000 years ago, we're talking about 1000 BCE. The pyramids were already 1,500 years old by then. Iron was just replacing bronze. The Phoenicians were creating the alphabet. Jerusalem was becoming a city. If you planted an olive tree that year, and it survived, which many did, that tree has lived through the rise and fall of the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian conquest, the Persian Empire, Alexander the Great's entire campaign, 2 world wars. Every single one of those events, world-shaking, civilization-defining moments, happened while that tree just kept quietly making olives. Think about that. Empires obsessed with permanence, with monuments, with legacies carved in stone, and they're all gone. But the olive tree farmers planted, maybe not even thinking about it, still here, still producing. So why does this matter beyond being a cool historical fact? Because it challenges a fundamental assumption about agriculture, that it's annual, temporary, reset every season. Most of our food system is built around annuals. Crops you plant, harvest, and replant. The field goes through cycles. The system resets. But olive trees are perennial. Plant once, harvest for thousands of years. And that creates a completely different relationship with land, with investment, with legacy. When you plant an olive tree, you're not farming for next year. You're not even farming for your children. You're farming for your great-great-great-grandchildren's great-great-great-grandchildren. That mindset, planting for centuries, not seasons, shaped entire cultures. Mediterranean societies built around olive groves didn't just own land. They inherited living legacies. Groves planted by ancestors 20 generations back, still feeding the family today. That's not just agriculture. That's intergenerational wealth in the most literal sense. Here's where it gets interesting from a purely practical standpoint. An olive tree takes about 5 to 7 years to start producing. But once it does, it can produce for centuries with minimal intervention. No replanting, no reestablishing root systems, no starting from zero. Modern industrial agriculture optimizes for maximum yield per acre per year. That makes sense for annuals. You're starting fresh anyway. Might as well maximize the season. But olive trees optimize for yield per acre per millennium. That's a fundamentally different calculation. The inputs are mostly upfront. The outputs continue essentially forever. The return on investment isn't measured in years. It's measured in generations. And in regions where olive culture persisted, the Mediterranean, parts of the Middle East, this created agricultural stability that annual systems simply can't match. Droughts come, olive production drops, but the trees survive. Wars come, Groves might be damaged, but the roots regenerate. Economies collapse, but the trees keep making olives. It's not that olive trees are perfect. They're not. They're slow to start. They require specific climates. They don't work everywhere. But in the places they do work, they represent something most modern agriculture has abandoned: permanence. So here's the question this tree forces us to ask. What did we trade when we built our food system around annual crops instead of perennial ones? We gained yield flexibility, mechanization, global commodity markets, short-term optimization. But we lost permanence, multi-generational thinking, built-in resilience, living legacies. Neither is purely good or bad, but we rarely acknowledge that the trade happened. We treat annual agriculture as if it's the only way, as if farming has always meant replanting every year. But it hasn't. For thousands of years, in the places olives grew, farming meant tending trees your grandparents planted, and planting trees your grandchildren would tend. That's not nostalgia. That's a different operating system for agriculture entirely. And the tree that made it possible is still here, still producing, older than most human institutions, outliving empires. The olive tree reminds us that permanence was once a priority, that planting for millennia, not seasons, was possible. It still is. We just stopped valuing it. Subscribe if you want to keep questioning what we've been told is normal, because sometimes the oldest trees have the clearest lessons.